children's song, and it's true. So I'm wondering how the music is in your hearts today, and I'm knowing it's wondrous, wondrous. So here we are, in our third week of looking at this thing called consciousness and its various states of being. And we're doing it through that beautiful metaphor of the castle, which is a 14th century concept that was demonstrated through the spiritual life of Teresa of Avila in the early 1500s. And we're looking at these states of consciousness, and the consciousness, of course, is the castle, and the states are the mansions, the 7 mansions that are in the castle. And we're endeavoring in this beautiful 2015 year to make it relevant in our own lives, because it is. The language may be different and presented to us differently, but the concept remains the same. And so the first mansion, you know, we've had to come to terms with our power games and our need to control and humility and allowing ourselves to be seduced by the beautiful courting presence of spirit. And then in the second mansion, we were invited to take a hard look at, see how well we do with recognizing God in all the details, which is illumination. You have to be illuminated to be able to do that. And then the need for soul companions, and also the essentialness of deep devotion to our source. Well, in this third mansion now, we're coming into, it gets a little bit more challenging. And remember, the mansions are not like this. They're all over the place. I could be in the first one 10 minutes ago, and I could be in the third one now, and I could be in the second one, you know, this afternoon. We're in and out of all of them. We're all over the place with it. That's how it is. It's chaotic. It's chaotic. But you and I were never taught that God is also chaotic, as well as law and order, as well as, you know, all that we have been rationally thought to think God is. Chaos is part of the human experience. It's part of life's experience, chaos. And we see that in science and so on and so forth. So here we take a hard, good look at, we're confronted by our fascination with order, with reason, with logic, with our mental and intellectual way of deciding how life is or isn't. There's a throwdown here between the soul and our terrible, as Caroline May says, our terrible, passionate love affair with reason, logic, and intellect. And so this is what we get to look at in the third mansion. And along with looking at that, we have to look at how our lives are as a result of our commitment to reason, logic, order, and intellect. Those are the big things that you and I are called to look at. And then to see if maybe there's an opportunity to change our mind about anything. You know what we say in this teaching, change your mind and it'll change your world. All right, so she says to us, I mean, after we came into the age of reason, you know, which around the age, you know, when Descartes and you know, all of these wonderful philosophers come into being and all the scientists come along and so on and so forth. In Teresa's age, we're just coming out of the intuitive state and awareness of being, and the understanding and the realization that the divine is spontaneous and sporadic and makes no sense at all at times. And they were very comfortable with that. They were very comfortable with that. They were very comfortable with the idea of the closeness of God and God in everything and nature and so on and so forth. They were very, very comfortable with it. And even at that time, of course, Teresa had difficulty with her nuns when it came to us understanding how to move forward and deeper and higher and wider into our soul's understanding and awareness of what life is. But once the age of reason set in, we became more mental, more intellectual, more attached and more committed to everything happening along the line of reason, along the line of logic, along the line of order. And so that's what we all are immersed in at this time too, that understanding and that awareness. But, of course, there is no reason and logic in spirituality. Where's the reason and rationale in a miracle? Is a miracle logical, reasonable, rational? Can I describe it in rational terms? No, I can't. Where's the logic in faith? For heaven's sake, faith is the total belief in something there's not a shred of evidence to support. And it's the total belief in something that hasn't even yet appeared. Where's the logic in that? And yet, weren't we brought up to be reasonable, rational, and logical? Yes, we were. You know, be sensible, child. Be reasonable, child. Be logical, child. We would have been far better off if sometimes we were told to be spontaneous, erratic. You know, and that we weren't questioned all the time when we did our own things in our own way very creatively. Like the little kid that went to school started off and loved to do paintings choosing his own colors, you know. So he might paint grass blue, and he might paint trees yellow, and he might paint a horse, you know, red, because he felt that's the way he saw these things. But he was forced by the teacher to always paint things according to the logic of the things. Grass is green. Water is blue. The sky is blue. And so on. And you cannot paint anything you see other than the way it is seen by everybody. That was the message. The child eventually forced himself to do that. And then once upon a time, he went to college. And when he got to college, he was told, why do you keep doing things the same way as everybody sees them? Is there another way to express yourself? You know, you are so into following the law of, the order of, can't you do it in such and such a way? And the young man had a very great difficult time reversing all of that because he had been taught that green things are green, blue things are blue, and there's no need to paint anything other than the way it is seen. And there's where we are with our logic and our rationale and our reasoning and our, you know, intellects. The soul doesn't think like that, reason like that. It's not logical like that at all. The soul is spontaneous and chaotic at times. It doesn't engage itself at the same level as the mind does. Remember, to get into the interior castle, into the top echelons of that castle, you have to go beyond the mind, beyond logic, beyond reason. And then as we do that, and as we throw down and we face down reason, logic, and so on, what comes up? Okay, I have to look at my expectations of God. I have to look at my concept and my idea of God, and I have to look at where I got all of that from. So what is my concept of God? A man, a superman, albeit. A woman, a goddess, albeit. A king, sovereign, a rescuer, a savior. What is my concept of God? And where did I get it? My concept of God is all over the place. It's this when I need it to be this. It's that when I need it to be that. God is a rescuer when I need to be rescued. God is a king when I need to feel sovereign. God is a man when I need to feel that masculine power and authority, or a woman when I need to feel that creative force moving through me. God is whatever I make God to be, and whatever I conceive God to be, that's what God is. Because it's my mind's chatter that decides all of that. My mind's reason, my mind's logic, my mind's rationale. And where did I get it? from the adults around me when I was little, from school, from the schooling I got, from books that I read, from places I visited and seen, spiritual sites, etc.? Where did I get my idea, my concept of God? Did I get it from a rational, logical, exterior, physical world? Or did I get my concept of God from the experiences of God within myself? Very little of the latter, I assure you, and a great deal of the former. God is something I convince myself God is in my mind most of the time. We're asked this week to look at that. We're asked to take a pen and a paper and write down what I think God is. And where did I get that idea? How did I grow that idea of God? A sky God, separate and apart from me. A God that comes and goes. A God that will hear me one day but not tomorrow. A God that will respond to me one day but not tomorrow. And so on. Where did I get all that? Where did it come from? That's our homework this week. What is my concept of God and where did I get it? Oh, and then that brings me into the expectations I have of God. What are my expectations of God? Oh, well, God is the one that takes care of all of my needs. God is the one that provides for me in every way. God is the one that makes sure that all is well within me, around me, and about me. God is the one I expect to show up for me when I need God to show up for me. God is the one I run to every time I have a problem, mostly every time I have a problem. And then I say, fix it. And why do I think that God should do that if God were like that? Well, because I prayed. I prayed for 3 days on that. 9 days, novena. The Catholics know all about novenas. 30 days, oh my goodness, I prayed 30 days for that to happen. I took a class, I even went to a seminar. For heaven's sake, I went on a retreat. Why shouldn't it happen? Why wouldn't God answer my prayer? I'm a good person after all, I deserve it. There goes my entitlement. I deserve it, for heaven's sakes. I did something good last week. That deserves something. Oh yes, I'm worthy. I deserve it. It is my right. God should respond to me. And what do I think about answered prayers? Oh, the only time we think our prayers is answered is when we get what we want. See, when we get what we want, we say, God answered my prayer. God didn't answer my prayer because I didn't get what I wanted. In my mind. I'm not saying that out loud, but that's what I'm thinking. God didn't answer my prayer because if God answered my prayer, I'd get what I wanted. Now, what kind of a God is that? That's not the God that you and I are introduced to in this teaching. The God that you and I are introduced to in this teaching is the God that came into being strongly, as Caroline Mason in her book says, about 50 years ago. A concept was introduced into the world, she says, that had never ever been given to humankind before. And that concept was, your life is your responsibility. She called it a new thought. She said the new thought of your life being your own responsibility really got off the ground about 50 years ago, around the 60s, early 60s. People were willing to look at that for the first time ever. First time it really, really began to intrigue human collective consciousness. That your God is an immanent God, an immediate God, a very present God, and that God is right where you are. Indeed, that God is in you as you are, and it's your responsibility to recognize it, identify with it, and to measure up to what you have discovered. To live as that very presence in what you're thinking and feeling and saying and doing. And to stop all the infantile nonsense that we engage in around this thing called God that is nothing like the infinite is. Your description, my description of God, is nothing like the truth of infinite being. It's an illusion, a human construct on the lines of logic, reason, rationale, as much as we have it. If you study the lives of the mystics, they were out of their minds. They were out of their minds. They were declared spiritual mad people. And that's why nobody gave them any trouble, because they were not a threat to the status quo, and they were not interested in power. They were left alone. It took Holy Mother Church years after Meister Eckhart had died for them to get what he was about and defrock him, denounce him. Because they're not a threat. They're only interested in good and creating good and supporting good and sustaining good. That's all. They're totally, madly in love with the divine. That's what a mystic is. One who is totally and madly in love with the divine, and one who practices the principle of oneness. That's what a mystic is. You, I, all of us, called to be mystics without monasteries, as Caroline Mace would say. We're called to be mystics without monasteries, mystics in the world, which is to be in the world, part of the world, engaged in the world, connected with the world, but not of it. But not of it along the lines of the material, physical, rational, logical world. There's nothing rational about somebody going off, in my time 200 years ago in Ireland, entering a convent or a monastery for a young man or woman. What's the matter with you? What do you want to do with that for? Wasting your life away like that. You could be out in the world doing good. Why would you want to bury yourself in a convent, in a monastery? Where's the reason in that? And never mind that, even to this very present day. Well, what are you studying in college? Well, I'm going to study spiritual studies. I'm going to really give that a shot. Spiritual what? Where's that going to get you? What's in that for you? I mean, what can that do for you in your life? How are you going to make a living with that? In other words, how are you going to make big bucks if that's what you want to study? Why, with your brain, why don't you be an attorney or a doctor or a Wall Street person? There's no logic in that. Rethink it. Go for something more than that. That's how we think, and we're asked this week to stop that nonsense and to go deeper into what? Understanding what it is to be a spiritually evolving soul, spirit, energy, light force. And what does that look like? When you and I enter into a spiritual practice, it's not for anything. It's not to get anything. It's not because of what's in it for me. We're entering into a spiritual practice because of what we can bring to life and living that will assist it and support it in the realization of good. So when I engage in a spiritual practice, whatever it is, it's to be open and receptive to the illumination that I am a vessel for peace, that I am an energy of love, that I am a vibration of what truth is, what good is, and to be at one with that in a way that says, and this is not something that you're saying in your mind, but your soul is catching where you're going with that, and then within you, your soul is filling you with the light that knows, I am the vessel of peace. I am the energy of love. I am the vibration of truth, so that I can be a devoted steward on this plane and be in selfless, sacred service to life, and no other reason. There's no honey-do list in all of that when I'm in sacred service. There's nothing, and there's no asking and pleading and imploring and bargaining. There's just a recognition that this is what I am in truth through the guidance and the power and the presence of the spirit of wisdom within me, the divine spirit of wisdom within me. And you see, in my recognition that I am a vessel of peace, that I am an energy of love, that I am the vibration of truth, all is healed. All is integrated. All that I need is established for me to live that way. I'm taken care of. I am provided for. And so the questions we get to ask ourselves this week, this is a tough place, because along with this battle, if you like, throwdown with reason, comes a terrible sense at times of aridity. It's called the arid, silent presence of spirit, where you feel no connection with your source. You can't feel it. It's not something you feel. In fact, you feel estranged from it, separate from it, isolated from it at times. John of the Cross would call it the dark night of the soul, where you're in shadowland, or nothing land, as Carol Mays calls it. It's where nothing's happening. Well, where are you now? I'm nowhere. What's going on? Nothing. I'm nowhere and nothing. That's my experience just now. And it's common. It's common to mystics. It's normal. It's absolutely normal. And that's what puts you on your spiritual toes and makes you understand and realize whether I'm in the mood to feel like God is present or not. God is present. You see, God may be invisible to me sometimes, but I am never invisible to God. And I may be absent from God sometimes, but God is never absent from me. That life force couldn't be. And I have to get in. This is very grown-up stuff. This is black belter stuff. This is not for spiritual wusses, this kind of thing. And let me tell you, you wouldn't be hearing it if you weren't equal to it. Somebody would say, oh, do you want to go that deep with people? I mean, are people ready for that kind of depth? I said, what are you talking about? Of course. At least my people are. That's why we're here. We can stay at the level of positive thinking and all the rest of it and so on and so forth. It makes us feel good, you know, rah, rah, cheer, cheer, look at you, what you can do, you know, mind over matter, all of that. But nothing is going to happen at soul level until I roll up my sleeves and do my work. And it's not always going to make me feel good. In fact, it can quite make me feel the opposite of good. But that's only mood swings. It's not truth, it's illusion. It's the mind not happy because you are not assuaging it and you're not fluffing up your ego. And that ego needs an awful lot of fluffing up. It really does, to keep it happy, to keep it safe, to keep it out of fear. So the fearlessness that is required from mystics is phenomenal. And every step of the way you have to say, I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid. I will not be afraid. I'll be accompanied by fear, but I will not be afraid. Now there's a conundrum. Fear is always going to be my companion on this plane. But I'm going to say to it, oh, my old friend Fear, come on in. Sit down, sup, eat, drink, that's great. Now, on your way, because you can't stay. There's no permanent place for you here with me. Off you go. So this week we're going to ask ourselves, have I enough peace within me to recognize that I am a peace vessel? Have I enough generosity in me to be able to show up in invisible sacred service? Sometimes you and I will be asked to be invisible. Have I got enough poise in me to do that? Have I got enough generosity in me to give and not count the cost? These are the questions we're asking ourselves in this great Holy Week, so that we can be more whole and feel that within ourselves. And to be okay with any old mood that shows up. It doesn't matter. My mood doesn't change the truth of me. I can be as blue as I want to be. I can be as down as I want to be. I can be as despondent as I want to be. But the truth is, I have a glowing illumination within me that can turn that like that if I make up my soul to do it. I'm not going to keep letting my mind have its way with me and to organize what kind of mood I'm going to be in because of circumstances, situations, and everything else out there in the sense world, because it's all illusionary anyway. It's illusionary. All the thoughts I think in my head, most of them are illusions. And I get upset about those thoughts because I imagine horror stories around them. He didn't look straight at me today, so he must have something going on that I've somehow or another, you know, annoyed him, upset him. Or he's not even thinking of you. It's your head. And so you know that well, and I do too. And they're flashing at me, and I have to stop. It's hard to stop in midstream, but however, you have the book, read it, study it. I'm not even doing a tip of the iceberg on Sunday with this. In class, we go deeper, but you have the book and you can take it as deep as you want to take it. But just get the general tendencies that we are engaged in and decide that maybe you need to work on this one or this one or this one and do it one tendency at a time and you will succeed. Try to do them all and you won't. But here's one thing you can go away with knowing. No matter what you're confronted by, no matter what you're enduring just now, no matter what horrible circumstances you're in, they are all temporary and they are all passing. And you can have them pass more quickly if you stand up in your soul's sovereignty and know you're not the boss of me. You're not the boss of me. You do not have power over me. You do not have power over me. And I am knowing that as I know this, feel this, speak this, you're on your way out. You are so on your way out. I'm done with this. I'm done with this. Because your soul will support you in changing your mind. And don't get bogged down in logic, because logic will tell you it's impossible. It's in the family. It's irreversible. It can't be done. You're being ridiculous. Come to your senses. Come to your senses. No, come to your soul. Come to your soul. Come to your soul. And let its power, let its light, and let its might prove that soul always has the upper hand over reason. And logic and reason are simply human constructs. They're not the divine truth. Now, everyone in this room can do this, but you start by telling yourself different stories, different ideas, and getting to feel that you're changing into different stories, different ideas, and different being. And let me tell you, don't take my word for it. Test it all out, try it all out, and you will amaze yourself. And that's what we're here to do, amaze our great selves. Amaze our great selves. So I am looking forward to this coming week and asking the hard questions and facing them. I'm looking forward to Friday, which is a Good Friday, but it's a Love Friday in the center. And I'm looking forward to the rising of the energy of Easter Sunday when it comes. And I'd like to celebrate all of that with you, knowing that we're having a great week, because we're excited about our spiritual journey and the changes we are in the process of moving through for the good and for the better. So get out there and splash your truth around, your light around, your grace around, because the world needs you, and so it is.